Hi everyone. This is the first work group out of 3 cloud provider work group meeting, or I don't know if we have even settled on an official name yet. Anyway, we're here and we're first gonna introduce ourselves a bit and talk about like what's required for creating this work group fully, and then go on to like beta, GA requirements and things we yet have to do. Yeah, let's start with the logistics, and Iago had an update there.
Sure. So I'm Jago McLeod. I'm an engineering manager at Google, and I have a couple people working on this project also, Walter Fender and Nick Sardo, who's otherwise occupied but will shift over in the next few weeks to help out with this. So on the administrivia side, we have the mailing list and the Slack channel have been set up. I think the next order of business is to set up a stationary Slack or Zoom account so that we can have a consistent location for this meeting each week. We're hijacking the cluster lifecycle account this week, but that will change by next week. And then once that exists, we just need a pull request to update the list of SIGs to make it discoverable where this is.
Yeah, and possibly a GitHub team in order to like ping the people here efficiently. What has been a bit unclear or frustrating to me so far is like I don't have a clear idea of like if we do a change to the cloud provider interface, then I don't know like who's responsible for whatever vSphere, or who's responsible for like this cloud provider, you name it. And if we had a single GitHub team, I could just ping that one and hope that they see it. That would be one benefit. I'm not sure if other work groups have set that up, at least not yet, but it might be worth doing for us. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, I think the convenient mentions aspect of it, I think we will probably figure out if we need an area also just for...
We already have an area.
Okay, so what is it, area cloud provider?
Yeah.
It's a bit generic, but at the same time, I don't think that's going to be a problem.
I think it's a really good idea, Lucas, because like you said, we don't know who owns what, and having that as the common channel for people to get the news on changes in the cloud provider interface is good.
And also, due to how GitHub teams and mailing lists are set up, whenever, at least this is the plan. I'm not sure if it's working, but I think so. Whenever someone pings the work group team, it's gonna ping a mailing list as well, because there's a mailing list GitHub user that is in this group. So this means that people not in the Kubernetes organization will be able to receive these notifications anyway, which I think is great. And we have this for the most SIGs, but again, I'm not sure if it's actually working. This is just what I've read should be working. But yeah, we can talk to SIG-PM. Some of those have been working this, I think. Robert may know more later. Yeah, I think, and also possibly VG slash whatever cloud provider refactoring or something could also make sense as a label. If we want to signal that we own this issue or PR instead of like this is cloud provider related.
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it would be useful just to step back and discuss what are the objectives of this project and working group, and then talk about the status as a recurring agenda item, just so we can do a quick roundtable and figure out what are the big obstacles that different teams are facing. I expect some of the more detailed work to be done in other avenues, other SIGs like SIG, Azure, or AWS or GCP, or other SIGs related to specific clouds. But for this meeting and working group, I think what's useful is to talk about the project overall and what obstacles we're hitting at a more architectural level. So Sid, maybe you want to give a quick overview of the proposal, and then we can move on to just status of the folks who are here.
Absolutely.
We may not have representatives from everywhere, but I think if we get in the habit, it will become more useful for others to join as we go along.
Absolutely, Jago. Yeah, I'll start off by talking about the objectives of this whole change and why this working group was formed, and then we can talk about the status after that. So we initially started this whole project started when I tried to add the Rancher cloud provider into Kubernetes, and it was apparent that it wasn't possible to add every one-off cloud into Kubernetes, and we wanted to come up with a plugin mechanism to add new clouds and manage cloud providers or external code in Kubernetes. So we started off by so we set this goal to make Kubernetes clouds plugin based, where you plug in a cloud rather than the cloud code residing in the code repository itself. And this project started about a year ago, and now we're at a stage where this is taken shape. It is solidified a lot more, and as this feature becomes more serious and it's affecting a lot of people, we formed this working group to have a formal channel of communication about what is happening, why we're doing this, and what is left, and what are the how users of this feature are going to be affected. Yeah, that's basically how this group started, how this project started. In terms of status, with the 1.8 release, we originally wanted to go to beta, but we don't have end-to-end tests, and there are a few bugs remaining. But if anyone is interested in trying this feature out, it works. There are a few limitations which I can go into during the meeting, but that's where we're at.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I can also say some words that so yeah, right after 1.7 was out, I started collecting beta graduation requirements, and to reiterate what Sid said, like basically we started talking about this a year ago with Tim Hawking when the Rancher cloud provider was rejected, and has been like a spontaneous occasional thing. Like, well, actually there was quite many people that worked on the proposal when Sid wrote that. A lot of other SIGs were looped in, and it was kind of we made this pretty good plan at the time, but it's clear that it hasn't progressed at all as fast as we lined up there. I mean, I think 1.9 was the release when in-tree cloud providers would be removed or something. It was, I think that was the case. Anyway, I mean,
still possible.
This anyway, it definitely takes time to move around all these things. I think we've made great progress now in the end of of the 1.8 cycle towards this. Andrew Pride from Oracle, and the other Josh, yes, have been working on Oracle side and have this working. I think Andrew Kim from DigitalOcean also have this working somewhat to what works today. And we got the persistent volume labeler from Rob, which was great to be converted to a controller instead of a admission controller. So I think we're far better off now in 1.8 than where we were in 1.7. Kubeadmin is also relevant to this, as Kubeadmin sets up a bare, like, minimum viable cluster, and ideally it should be just a kubectl apply away with your new controller. That's our goal. So you do kubeadm init, then you apply this new cloud provider controller that will start like untainting the kubelets in the cluster, and etc. What's needed? We still have to reverse the data flow, like Jordan legit said last time, which now doesn't work from this perspective. This will require some cross-cutting efforts with Sigurd as well. But I think, and E2E tests is the really big issue, or so to say here. I've looked into this quite a bit, and it's possible that now when we're in SIG cluster lifecycle, we're working on and SIG federation to move SIG federation tests to using kubeadmin and Kubernetes anywhere. And as part of this effort, it would be great, since federation depends on cloud provider like GC persistent disks, we're thinking about if we could use the out of 3 cloud providers to automatically, the GC one, to automatically get coverage from there. More about this later. I mean, then we'd get more things in the one test. Anyway, that's well, and yeah, I'm Lucas Kjellström from Finland, and I'm working as a contractor for WeWorks occasionally. Have also been a maintainer for quite a while, and I'm interested in Kubernetes generally. Like, I've been working on kubeadmin since it was started, and yeah, also in high school, so we'll have time, but we'll have exams every now and then.
Yeah, thanks for coordinating this all along, and while doing high school. It's very impressive. So I wanted to add a quick thing about the kubelet data flow model. I spoke to Tim about this when I met Tim the day I met Jago as well, and he said it can be solved using initializers, and we don't need a cross-cutting, complicated effort. Well, it's still going to be difficult, but I think initializers is one of the simpler ways to solve that issue, where an initializer for the IP addresses or the CCM acts as the initializer for the IP addresses, and only after that is done, kubelet goes and creates the certs.
Yeah, let's have introductions from the rest of the group as well. Feel free to introduce yourself.
So I guess I'm Rob Raytai. I'm working at Red Hat. I did the persistent volume label controller, and I've been working on a number of different clouds. I did actually have kind of a question. There was a call for a while that kind of died down to create a working group for that, cross-cutting across the clouds to try to provide some consistency. Is the intention to do some of that here, or separate? Because I'm thinking about it from a perspective of if you're going to do guidelines for out of process, out of tree providers, it would make sense to have these are the standard way things should operate if you're going to be working outside of it. So kind of a document of I don't know, maybe the API and each in of the important API calls and how things should be happened, so that all the cloud providers are functioning the same once they leave the tree. It almost seems like something that we would need to have. Now, I don't know if it's a part of this group or if it would be something that, this other working group would do if that's being created, or, if this is going to do the work of that group or not. I think there's a lot of overlap there to be addressed.
I think that's a really good question. I think that the questions that you raise are likely to be fairly contentious.
Probably.
There's a really clear objective for this group, which is immediately actionable. And I'd like to keep this group focused on that where possible.
So is this group just about, that's kind of what I was questioning, right? Is where is the scope of this group ending, right? Because we're talking about moving it out of tree providers. But if we're doing that, don't we also need to provide guidance of how these cloud providers need to work? And if we're doing that, then that kind of filters into the bigger issue.
So my proposal on this is there will be unavoidable situations where we have differences of opinions on how a cloud should react to, I think, node deletion was one thing, and I know there's a collection.
Sure there's a lot more.
No, I know, but there are canonical examples that are prickly situations, and my suggestion would be that we identify them and clearly articulate the options, and then escalate to SIG architecture, because it will eventually end up with those people involved in the conversation anyway. So I think we can short circuit a lot of ongoing conversations and shortcut to saying here are the issues, here are the options, and that needs to be accomplished by the people who understand the options in the cloud provider solutions. But the direction and how consistent do they need to be, and that aspect I think is better answered by the folks in SIG architecture. Does that sound like a good?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine with me. As long as there is, I think some plug in there to say there's some guidance and it's being given somewhere. We provide, this would provide some level of guidance, and maybe another working group or SIG or something provides the absolute, this is how everything should work once they've worked things out. But I was just kind of feeling that guidance needed to be somewhere.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think it's useful to have a mechanism to say, let's stop talking about this right now and just push that off to SIG architecture so we can keep making progress on the immediate goals.
Yep, that sounds fine. Or the whatever new working group, if that ever gets formed.
Yeah, it's one of the contentions, like SIG cloud.
Yeah.
Should we do that or not? But
or working group cloud or whatever it is.
Let's defer that for now. Andrew?
Hi, you guys can hear me, right? I'm on my phone, so okay, good. I'm Andrew. I work at DigitalOcean. We ran into a similar problem as Rancher. We wanted to get DO support in Kubernetes, but it was hard to get it in. So we ended up just adopting Cloud Controller Manager early, and I mostly maintain the Cloud Controller Manager for DigitalOcean.
Thank you for adopting early and helping to figure out what wasn't quite all the way thought through.
I mean, it's there's a lot of work to be done still, and I would love it to be like really easy for people to adopt it on DigitalOcean. But yeah, there's a lot of caveats, and it's still not there yet. But hopefully, in the next couple of releases, it will be a lot easier to adopt for everyone else.
Anyone else on the call? Robert Bailey, I see a vent over your head.
And Craig Are you?
Yeah, I'm here, Lucas. So I'm Craig Tracy. I am currently working at Heftio, and I'm particularly interested in this topic because I run into the same issues with trying to do this on DigitalOcean. So I'm primarily just lurking right now, but yeah, trying to get a lay of the land.
Cool. One immediate question that doesn't take too much time is, should we deprecate, now that Rob did this work with the persistent volume labeler, should we deprecate the admission controller right now in 1.8 and say like remove 110 or something? It needs to be at least 6 months, but yeah.
Should the CCM not be beta at least before we do that?
That's what I would think too.
Yeah, I mean,
deprecated doesn't necessarily mean
yeah,
we're not. Like, we would deprecate it now to give us more headroom, and then when it goes beta, we can decide what to do from there. That would be my thought.
If we see that, well, this didn't work out as expected, we can just undeprecate it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like in Kubernetes land, like people, like you really want to give a big heads up when you completely remove anything. And so to me, like, if we know it's not going to work, we should just give that notice now. That way, like when we go to 1.9 later, we at least have the luxury of knowing that we gave at least 3 months notice. But
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I'm just worried about, let's say I call it deprecated. So I'm a user looking at this and looking at it and finding out that it's deprecated. So what's the alternative? The CCM is not ready. So what are they going to do?
I mean, deprecated means that we have a long-term plan to use something else. I don't think that means there must be like stable version of this thing before. But yeah, I see
yeah, honestly, this whole thing is a little bit upside down. This is fairly common at Google. I imagine it's common in the rest of the world where the old thing is already deprecated, but the new thing isn't ready yet. So I think we're globally in that area already.
Okay.
But I think I guess my question is, are there other uses for the persistent volume label that are not related to the cloud provider project?
I don't think so.
No.
Rob?
Not that I know of.
So really what this starts is it starts the clock for existing cloud providers that are already in core to get out. Is that the...
Right now, it's just GC and AWS, right? Or?
Yeah, that's the only thing that GC and AWS are the only ones that do any labeling in the admission controller.
So yeah, I mean, like, right now we for example enable this persistent volume labeler admission controller in all deployment, at least as far as I know, deployment setups. We could like start early and say this is deprecated, and for the cases we know that like cloud provider isn't used, we can just keep it out of the admission chain, like in 1.10 or whatever. But just signal early. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, deprecated doesn't mean that it doesn't work anymore. It's just that it's going to be going away, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, this kind of a thing, I kind of think the more leeway you give, the more headroom is probably a good idea, since it's going to be a breaking change when it goes away. And I guess, you know, you said you can always mark it undeprecated, and it wouldn't change for anybody.
Yeah, I think we should just talk to someone on SIG AWS and say, is there a SIG GCE or whatever the SIGs are, and I think we should just get an answer from them instead of because I think like they probably should have a really good really big say in this decision as well.
So, Diego, aren't you the SIG GCE person? Or do you know who that is?
I'm trying not to be. Yes, I do. I'm trying to remember his name. So I assigned to Walter to do the legwork and track it down. It's really Adam Worrell, I think, is the proposed SIG lead for SIG GCP. It's a bit stalled out because he's playing another role as the branch manager for the open source 1.8 release. So he just got busy doing something else. But I can certainly take it as an action item to see if we have any objections to that.
Yeah.
We're working hard to make this migration, so it's certainly our intention to execute against the plan. I just don't know if there are any other moving pieces that I'm not aware of.
Andrew, as you took care of the last auto detection deprecation, could you send out an email again?
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, everyone hates me already for deprecating one thing. I guess deprecating two things wouldn't make it any worse. So
you'd be like the fixer. This could be your role. You just
or the scapegoat.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So I also wanted to bring up. So I opened a PR to update our docs for Cloud Control Manager, and so writing the docs, I realized that when we advertise this new feature, there's a lot of operational things that might kind of there's a lot of operational overhead to make this work, and I'm wondering if how much detail we should go into that, and if maybe going too much into the limitations or whatever might shy people away from using this feature. So I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts or opinions? So it seems so from the PR, it seems like we should just add all the limitations, all the future work, all the operational details that need to make this work. But if anyone has any other opinions on that, please let me know, because I'm going to be updating the PR sometime today or tomorrow.
Yeah, so
we maybe post a link to that PR in the Slack channel just to
Sure.
give visibility to folks who didn't make it.
Yeah.
Also, it is 10:30. I was hoping we could keep this meeting to 30 minutes so that people don't avoid it because it's yet another meeting that takes too long. Do you guys believe that we can pull this off in 30 minutes a week, or do you think we actually need an hour?
I think
right on cue, I'm getting kicked out, so I'm going to drop off and leave that for you guys to sort out. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
So yeah, for me, at least we can answer your question, and then try to find time next week. So yeah, I think we should provide some examples, and I think those examples should originate from a baseline of a KubeADM cluster. I'm indeed biased, but but I mean, KubeADM is the only thing that doesn't do infra. Unlike most every other installer, and also it's just the bare minimum. I mean, it doesn't install any add-ons. So it's like this. I mean, if you did Kubernetes the hard way, or basically you'd end up with the same thing. So I think that's a good baseline to start from. Providing some examples whatever, a GCE manifest, just for reference, or I don't know.
Yeah, I opened a PR to include some examples too, so I'll link them to you later.
Yeah, they just they can't go into Kubernetes because examples has moved out as part of pretty much everything else in our monorepo. Okay. So I'd prefer to have those in Kubernetes GitHub IO.
Okay, noted.
Ultimately, you only probably need to have maybe discuss some of the operational stuff and only a few examples for a few, right? Because invariably it becomes the documentation onus on the external cloud provider itself to provide that documentation of what's required to make its own cloud go.
Yeah, and I think the difficult part is that we're kind of assuming that there's like two types of readers, like the person who just wants to run Cloud Controller Manager on the cluster, and like the other person is like someone who wants to adopt it. And so maybe we should have two separate docs for those two things.
I think two separate docs makes a lot of sense. That's what we did for kubeadm. Like we have this getting started or creating a cluster with kubeadm guide, and it basically just states run kubeadm init and kubeadm join. Then we also have a reference guide with a lot of detail, like how does it actually do things. So following that pattern sounds good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And also, I mean, well, as we know, the in-tree cloud providers right now are kind of privileged compared to the other ones. And I mean, this effort is making that not the case eventually. But until as a stopgap, I would be fine with like having separate docs for how to run Cloud Controller Manager on GCE, how to run Cloud Controller Manager on AWS. So from the like how to run this thing doc, you just have a list of like GCE, AWS, all these 7, I think, at the moment. And then also, just to be fair, of course, you'd list the other like Oracle, DigitalOcean as well, but then they would be in other repositories, right? Eventually, these will move out. Like eventually, there will be like GitHub.com, Google Cloud Platform, or something like that / Kubernetes Controller Manager, and I don't know. Do you see that as a good like in between state?
You mean having both?
So basically, like documenting how to run your in-tree cloud provider here in the Kubernetes docs, but both linked to in-tree and known out-of-tree providers.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yep, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Cool.
Yeah, good. Then we have. I'll just ping me when you have the a new revision of the PR, and we'll see.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, I mean, we're out of time anyway. We'll try to keep it to 30 minutes. It might be a little bit hard, at least initially, but yeah, let's try to stick to the plan for now, and we can debate on the time on the mailing list. Is my suggestion. Like that's 7 minutes over.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay. Then see you all next week.
Yep. See you all next week.